Good morning, Wednesday. I'm Gretchen Hall. It is the 4th day of June, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Despite President Bongbong Marcos's call for courtesy resignations, many cabinet members remain in their posts. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin confirms that 22 officials will keep their posts as performance assessments continue. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa urges Malacanang to declare a public health emergency as HIV cases continue to surge nationwide. DOH reports over 5,000 new cases in the first 3 months of the year, with at least 54 infections recorded daily. And the U.S. Food and Drug Administration orders Pfizer and Moderna to expand warning labels on COVID-19 vaccines, citing a rare risk of heart inflammation in males aged 16 to 25. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, more officials have been removed from the Marcos cabinet, but many others are staying put. Here's the full story.
Even after President Bongbong Marcos asked his entire cabinet to file courtesy resignations, many remain in their post. At a press briefing on Tuesday, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin announced that 22 cabinet members will be retained. Including in the list are Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel, Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella, Education Secretary Sonny Angara, TESDA Secretary Jose Francisco Benitez, Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma, and Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. Also retained Health Secretary Ted Herbosa, DMW Secretary Hans Kakdak, DOST Secretary Renato Solidum, Tourist Secretary Cristina Frasco, DICT Secretary Henry Ruel Aguda, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon, and DPWH Secretary Manuel Bonoan. At their confirmation hearings, Dizon and Aguda confirmed that their courtesy resignations were declined.
Kahit na I'm a little embarrassed to do it, but I did get a call from the executive secretary that the president did not accept.
I received a call from the executive secretary telling me that my resignation was declined by the president, Mr. Chair.
And this was just recently. Just for the record.
Just for the record, it's almost the day after the courtesy resignation.
8 other presidential appointees are also staying, including Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce Enrile. Bersamin also said that Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo will stay in his current post, at least for now. Previously, Malacanang announced Manalo would be moved to the Philippine mission to the United Nations by August 1.
All of them who have been retained, including myself, are expected to give fresh attention to the mandates and to give more performance, show more performance in our respective areas.
Several officials have also been removed from the cabinet. These are Presidential Commission for the Urban Port Chair and CEO Maynardo Sabili, Presidential Assistant for the Visayas Terence Calatrava, Presidential Assistant on Muslim Affairs Almarim Tila, and Presidential Advisor for Special Concerns Menandro Espinelli. Bersamin said cabinet performance evaluations remain ongoing.
Some House lawmakers hit Senate President Cheese Escudero over the delay in the start of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. Here's the report.
The call is clear from the House. Start the impeachment trial. Lawmakers from the Makabayan Bloc and Akbayan party list are urging the Senate to stop delaying proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. They are now questioning whether the Senate is afraid or simply protecting someone. ACT Teachers Representative Franz Castro criticized Senate President Cheese Escudero for moving the presentation of the articles of impeachment to June 11. She suggested this could be retaliation from the House passing the articles on its last session day before the elections.
Well, something fishy. At nakikita natin na paghahanda na ito doon sa mga gusto nilang mga position ba o sa 2028, etc. Kaya unahin nyo naman for the first time ang taong bayan at wag yung mga personal na mga interest nyo. So wag nang mag-deny si SP na talagang meron siyang pinoproteksyonan, meron siyang balakin sa mga susunod na mga panahon.
Kabataan Party List Representative Raul Manuel also weighed in, questioning if the alleged misuse of the 612.5 million pesos in confidential funds is being treated as a minor issue. Meanwhile, Senate President Escudero placed the blame on the House, claiming their actions caused the current standstill.
Pwede bang i-rally ko rin sila ng 4 na buwan o hindi nila inaksyonan yung impeachment complaint kung sila mismo ay hindi nagmadali? Inupuan at pabanjing-banjing sa mahabang panahon. Sino naman sila para madaliin kami ngayon?
In an interview with 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang, Senator Coco Pimentel said the impeachment proceedings should start on June 11. This will include the reading of the articles of impeachment, the swearing in of senators as members of the impeachment court, and the issuance of a summons to Vice President Sara Duterte. Pimentel also noted that the trial may extend into the next legislative term under the 20th Congress.
Hindi ko makomit yung iba kong mga kasama, pero yun ang position ko. Unfortunately, yung theory na crossover, nakita nyo naman kahapon sa debate, hindi kami 100% solid doon. So, yung merong theory na hindi nagko-crossover, meron din siyang mga subscriber. Meron din naniniwala sa kanya na tama siya na hindi magko-crossover. At kami, sa paniniwala namin, very simple reason, supported by words in the Constitution na pwede mag-crossover. So may naniniwala sa amin, may naniniwala dito sa kabila. So hindi ko masabing sigurado na which part ang sigurado.
Political strategist Malu Tiquia questions the scope of the Marcos cabinet revamp, calling it incomplete. Tiquia told One News the big story that a true revamp should realign post-election priorities and include clear metrics for removals. She claimed the target appears to be Solicitor General Minardo Guevara, a known ally of former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is now detained at The Hague. She added Guevara's recused position on Duterte's habeas corpus plea may have played a role in his ouster.
It took them almost 2 weeks to complete such a performance evaluation. The public has not been informed on the KPIs, the key performance indicators that were used, or the metrics that were used in order to say, oh, alis ka dyan. Ang pinunto lang naman is si Solgen.
As for the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte, Tiquia agreed time is running out. She said the Senate cannot act without plenary session and there's simply no time left on the calendar.
Ang simpleng rason, wala nang oras. Kailan ba nila forward sa Senate yung impeachment? Di ba wala nang session? Paano, sige, na-receive ng Secretariat, ng Senado, i-refer yon sa order of business, plenary yon. Babasahin, tapos sasabihin, referred to the Committee on Rules. Walang maging gawang ganon kasi walang plenaryo.
Meanwhile, Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon acknowledged that the public transport modernization program is no longer viable in its current form. Speaking before the Commission on Appointments, he pointed out that many transport cooperatives are struggling to repay loans for modern vehicles. He also noted that only around 40% of public utility vehicles have consolidated into cooperatives as required by the program. Additionally, less than 20% of local government units have rationalized routes, issues that further hinder the program's progress under its current design.
Given the present state of the modernization and kung itutuloy-tuloy lang po, tingin ko po yung fact na hindi na nakakabayad ng utang ang karamihan sa mga bumili ng bagong mga sasakyan, that is a clear sign that it is not viable in its present state.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more stories right after a quick break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. At this point, let's get an update on former lawmaker Arnie Teves, who is now at the NBI Detention Center. And for that, we have NBI Director Jaime Santiago joining us on Morning Matters today. Good morning.
Hi, good morning po, ma'am, at sa listeners.
Una-una po, no, talagang nagulat ang lahat, no, dahil sa biglang pag-aresto sa dating congressman. Pero a report said this capture was 2 years in the making. From the very start, was Timor-Leste open to working with Philippine authorities, or did they find reason for trouble? I mean, tell us all about paano po napagplanuhan itong pag-capture kay Arnie Teves.
Yes, ma'am. You would recall that we filed, ay nag-request tayo ng extradition sa bansa nila, but then the camp of Congressman Teves filed an motion, an action before their court. So una, nanalo tayo, and then they filed an appeal, panalo pa rin tayo, but the third time, we were denied. So, nag-alala tayo noon, ang government natin, nag-alala tayo, bakit gano'n na nangyari. So, nagkaroon usapan between the government at si Secretary Boying Remulla and lately the President. So, finally, na-persuade natin sila na to give up Congressman Teves to us.
Is it because he was designated as a terrorist? Is that the primary reason for their cooperation with the Philippine government? Or meron na pong, parang meron po akong nabasa na maaaring magdulot pa ng kapahamakan sa Timor-Leste itong si Kong Arnie Teves?
Lahat po yan kinonsider ng Timor-Leste government. They realized that Teves has been staying in their country for 2 years already without any documents. Remember that pinakancel natin ang kanyang passport. Second, they considered also the charges held against him before our court here in Manila. Medyo serious offenses. Kaya sabi nila, detrimental ito sa security ng mga mamamayan natin. So yun, they finally decided to deport the former congressman to us. Ayun po nangyari.
And bukod, kumpara po dun sa paghuli dito kay Alice Go, nag-set pala itong Timor-Leste government ng kanilang mga conditions, no? For turning over to the Philippine authorities. What were those conditions that need to be met for that agreement to be satisfied?
Yes, ma'am. Upon receipt nga natin ng kanilang decision to turn over Congressman Teves to us, the Secretary of Justice, si Secretary Boying Remulla, formed a team, special team. Ako, BI, at saka Undersecretary Eli Cruz. So kami ang pinapunta doon sa Timor-Leste. So silently lang, ganon. Di punta na ho kami doon sa through Philippine Air Force plane. Pagdating namin doon, we coordinated and then handed to us yung turnover paper, but with condition. With condition. Ngayon, this will be a turnover from their immigration to our immigration office. So, binabasa kami, and then nagpasok na ako. Sabi ko, may ID conditions. Ayun nga, nabasa ko na huwag daw dadampas dapat ng 40 years ang magiging penalty ni Congressman Teves. Sabi ko, talagang ganyan ang batas natin dito sa Pilipinas. We have what we call a threefold rule. So, lahat ng kanyang mga cases ay yung suma total ng kanyang magiging penalty, the court will get the highest penalty imposed times 3 basta more than 40 years. Batas po natin dito yun. Second, limitation, no death penalty. Talaga namang wala po tayo ditong death penalty. At dapat walang torture, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Ganun din po ang batas natin dito. So, nung makarating nga dito, I accorded him all his rights as an accused. Nirespeto natin ng kanyang human rights, processes, nirespeto po natin. Tapos, nagre-request din po sila na makapag-monitor sila. They are free to observe whatever is happening here. Tapos, walang coerced evidence, bawal po sa atin yun. At talaga naman bawal po batas natin yun. Fair and public trial, talaga naman pong fair at saka public trial ang court natin. So, sabi ko, you can sign that na walang ano yan. Yan din ang batas natin as if wala namang kondisyon, kundi nire-reiterate lang nila. Ganon po.
Right. He remains to be at the NBI Detention Center. How long will he stay there and what's going to happen next?
Ayun po, ma'am, dahil kami po ang arresting officer, dinetain namin siya sa facility namin. Ito po, paliwanag ko rin, magugulat ang mga tao. Bakit siya bilibid sa Bureau of Correction? Ganito po, nung mawalan po kami ng building at ngayon po umuupa lang kami, wala kaming detention facility. So, nanghiram kami ng detention facility sa Bucor at binigay nga sa amin ng Building 14. Yung Building 14 po ay controlled ng NBI at personnel ng NBI ang nagbabantay doon. Ganun po. So, he's detained there. Andun po siya ngayon.
Pero kamusta naman po ang kanyang kondisyon? Saan po siya naka-detain? Sa preso po ba o may special room po yun?
Meantime po, inilagay ko siya sa isang room na yun, ma-acclimatize siya, ika nga, na ano na siya ngayon, detention na prisoner na siya ngayon. Dahan-dahan po yung process na yan, ganyan po talaga ang ating correctional procedure. So, nireturn na po namin ang mga warrant of arrest ng mga courts and then ang court po ngayon ay mag-i-issue ng commitment order. Uutusan kami kung saan namin dadalhin yung final commitment place ni Congress. Ganun po.
Sabi po ni DOJ spokesperson na Clavano that the prosecution might move for a consolidation of the cases. Bakit po kailangan yun? Kailangan ng consolidation? Is that the necessary direction? Kasi marami po mga kaso na hinaharap, tama po ba? At ano-ano mga yun?
Yes ma'am. Tama po yun. Kasi po may kaso siya sa Dumaguete, may kaso sa somewhere sa Visayas. Dito po, tapos yung ibang cases niya ay na-change venue na-transfer na dito sa Manila. At tapos dito sa Manila, different courts pa rin po ang may hawak. Para mapadali ang litis, mas mabuti nga ho ma-consolidate sa isang court. Kasi po, yung isang witness, magwi-witness ngayon, magwi-witness na naman sa another court, magwi-witness na naman sa another. Matagal po noon. Kaya mas mabuti nga po ma-consolidate ang mga cases in one court so that mapabilis natin ang ating proceedings.
Okay. Maaari po bang malaman yung breakdown ng cases na hinaharap ni Kong Arnie Teves?
Ay, naku po ma'am, hindi ko magbilang sa daliri ko. Siguro more than 20, ma'am. More than 20. Yes, ma'am.
Pero ito pong paghuli sa kanya, ano po yung mga main? Yung po yung murder, frustrated murder?
Yes, ma'am. Murder, frustrated murder, attempted murder, at saka meron pang financial terrorism. May illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, at saka explosives. Napakarami pong kaso. Opo.
Pero kung sakasakali po ay saan po kaya pinaka-ideal na ito ay malagay sa piitan si Kong Arnie Teves? Meron po ba kayong petition doon?
Alin po, ma'am, again?
Kung saan po siya malalagay sa piitan, sa bilibid po ba ang request ng NBI?
Hindi po. Yung detention cell namin, nagkataon lang na sa Bilibid. But then, Bucor po, para sa mga convicted prisoners po yun. Ngayon, yung pansamantalang detention while undergoing trial, ayan po pwedeng sa BJMP, pwedeng sa amin, sa NBI, pwede po sa may kulungan po ang ISAP din. Depende po kung sino po ang neutral at mapoproteksyonan ang safety ng detainee. Ganun po.
Maaari po bang magpetisyon ang kampo ni Kong Teves for bail, for temporary release, or is this really non-bailable?
Ang sangkatutak nga po ang kaso at mukhang marami ang non-bailable. Kaya medyo yung parte na mag-grant ang kanyang temporary release, mag-grant ang kanyang bail, bilang former judge, parang natatakot ako na hindi yun mapagbibigyan.
Okay. Director, puntahan naman po natin yung kaso ni Alice Go. Kayo po ay naghain ng falsification complaint laban sa kanya. Ano pong finalsify po niya at ano po ang kalakip doon?
Yun pong kay Alice Go ay ongoing na po ang trial sa court. Tsaka wala po siya sa aming poder. I understand na sa Pasig Court ay si Alice Go. Yes, ma'am.
Ano po ang kaibahan ng kaso ni Alice Go kay Arnie Teves? Kasi kay Alice Go, marami rin po siyang hinaharap ng mga kaso. No? Katulad nung, yun nga po yung graft, material misrepresentation, meron din po siyang co-warrant petition, meron din po siyang perjury and falsification complaint, tax evasion complaint, at sa iba-ibang korte po ito. Di po ba kailangan din yun i-consolidate? I mean, kasi yung kay Kong Arnie, kung sinabi niyo po higit 20, dito po marami rin.
Yes, ma'am. Tama po kayo. Yun po, yung mga consolidation of cases, nasa prosecution po yan. Pwede silang mag-request ng prosecution or the camp of Alice Go may move that the cases be consolidated in one court.
Okay. Okay. You also filed a complaint against PAGCOR employees for violation of the Anti-Human Trafficking Act because of their failure to monitor these illegal activities within the POGO compounds. Can you expound a little bit more about that and the accountability on PAGCOR's part?
Yes, we have already filed the case and it's now undergoing DC-20. DC-20 po ng aming Department of Justice at tinitignan po nila yun. Pinag-aaralan nila kung ang aming mga pinaresentang ebidensya ay tama ba, ang aming allegation ay tama ba, and then they will finally decide kung mag-undergo ng preliminary investigation si Alice Go. Ganun po ang yung mga PAGCOR employees. Ganun po yun. Pagka na-turn over na namin sa kanila, pag wala silang hiningi sa aming additional evidence, ayun na po, proceed na po yun hanggang sa court trial.
Okay, meron po ba kayong ebidensya na may kaalaman nito mga PAGCOR employees doon po sa illegal human trafficking activities?
Meron po. Mga circumstances, mga nangyari, yun po ay kinonsider po namin lahat.
So this is very specific to the case of Zunyuan Technology. Hindi po, kung wari sa ibang mga POGO, na kapag mayroong mga illegal activities, maaaring makasuhan yung nag-renew ng lisensya nitong mga kumpanyang ito.
Ayun nga po, dyan po kami dyan po kami nag-ikot yung investigation namin. Hindi ko po masyadong maikwento sa inyo in detail, but yun po, investigation, talagang napakatagal na investigation na napansin niyo po. Kapapile lang po namin yung mga cases against these PAGCOR employees.
Bilang panghuli po, ano pong update natin dun sa mga POGO operations? Ito, kasi nga po, ang huling balita natin ay nag-downsize sila at parang naging local na po yung kanilang mga clients, no? Na parang from POGO, naging PIGO. Ano po yung update doon sa paghabol natin sa mga POGO?
Yes, ma'am. We are continuously monitoring their activities. Ang nangyari nga po, ma'am, ay from a big POGO group, nag-splinter sila to small groups and occupying condominiums, residential houses, mga 10, mga ganyan lang sila, naggrupo-grupo and continued their activity. Pero scamming na, lab scam, crypto, ganyan, medyo matitigas ang ulo nito. Kaya pagka nahuli namin, ang problema po ma'am ganito, pagka hinuli namin at pinailan namin ng kaso, criminal case, ay they will not be deported immediately. They will have to undergo trial. Pagka natapos yung trial, tsaka pa lang sila ma-deport. Kaya yung kulungan natin napupuno. So, yung iba, tinitimbang-timbang na lang namin. Anyway, pagka na-deport sila, ay pagdating nila sa China, for example, ay kaso na naman sila dun eh. Ganun po ang nangyayari.
Pero sila po ba ay hindi na makakabalik ng Pilipinas?
Yes, blacklisted po sila. Blacklisted po. Kaya lang, man talaga sila ay mga criminal minded na gagamit na naman ng ibang pangalan, gagamit na. Kaya very important dito ang aming fingerprint. Yes, ganun po. Hindi sila kahit magpalit sila ng pangalan, their fingerprint will not be changed.
Alright, maraming salamat po no sa mga updates no for Congressman Arnie Teves, of course, and also on the case of Alice Go and the POGOs. We have NBI Director Jaime Santiago.
Maraming salamat din po sa inyo, ma'am. Salamat po.
In other news, Eastern Samar is now officially under a state of emergency. The declaration comes after supply and transport disruptions caused by the restrictions on the San Juanico Bridge. The provincial board approved the resolution during a special session held on June 2. It was endorsed by the Provincial Disaster Council and led by Vice Governor Maricar Sison Gotisan. As of now, a load limit of 3 tons is implemented on the bridge due to repair works. Health Secretary Ted Herbosa is calling on Malacanang to declare a public health emergency amid a surge in HIV cases nationwide. Here is the report.
Duin was only 9 years old when he contracted human immunodeficiency virus or HIV after falling prey to sexual abuse. The reality of his health condition only hit him when he was already 14. Now 26 years old, Duin is on continuous medication.
As I grew up, inuunti-unti nila na matanggap ko yung story na meron ako and matanggap ko yung story about HIV. And ayun po, luckily I am living and breathing with my normal life.
Duin is just one of more than 150,000 persons living with HIV in the Philippines. There are now treatments available. But what's alarming, according to the Department of Health, is the sudden 500% rise in cases, especially among the youth. Per DOH data, ages of new patients this year range between 15 and 25, while most patients are within 25 to 34 years of age. The youngest by far is a 12-year-old from Palawan, who got the disease from unwarranted, unprotected sex.
It is alarming. No? Any sexual contact with a minor, kahit anong pakikipagtalik sa bata, ay rape.
DOH also notes more than 5,000 of new HIV cases were already recorded during the first 3 months of the year. That's much higher compared to numbers from the same period in 2024 of more than 3,000. Now at least 54 new HIV infections are recorded every day. At the moment, the Philippines has the highest recorded incidence of the disease in the whole Western Pacific region. That's why the DOH has this recommendation to President Bongbong Marcos. Declare a national public health emergency for HIV. This is to enhance HIV testing, prevention, and treatment. Because if it can't be done now, the DOH estimates the total number of people living with HIV in the country to balloon to more than 400,000 sooner than later.
Hindi ibig sabihin lockdown, hindi ibig sabihin pandemic. Pag dineclare mo kasi as a public health emergency, nagiging concerted yung effort, nagiging sama-sama at nagfo-forward siya. Kasi ang bilis ng panik eh.
The Health Department is also urging the public to remember the ABCDE of preventing HIV. A for abstinence, B for being faithful, C for condom use, D for avoiding drugs, and E for educating oneself about HIV. Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual, we are One News.
Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back right after a quick break. Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is ordering Pfizer and Moderna to expand warning labels on their COVID-19 vaccines. The new warning highlights a rare risk of heart inflammation, myocarditis, and pericarditis, mainly in males aged 16 to 25. The FDA cites new safety data, and a study showed that the highest incidence in that age group at 38 cases per million doses. Despite the findings, officials stress that these side effects remain rare and typically mild. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, also notes most cases resolve quickly and the benefits of vaccination still outweigh the risks. And to talk about that, we have former chairperson of the country's vaccine expert panel during the COVID-19 pandemic and currently member of the Philippine FDA Scientific Advisory Committee. We have Dr. Nina Gloriani joining us on Morning Matters.
Yes, good morning, Rachel and everybody.
Okay, Doctor, what do you make of this news that they are requiring, the U.S. FDA is requiring more warning labels for Pfizer and Moderna? How do we take this, and is there reason to worry?
Okay, we have already received, reports about myocarditis after COVID vaccination, especially after the mRNA vaccines, no? And as you have said, this is rare, but there have been recent data that showed real data, scientific data that proved that myocarditis after vaccination were really present. And this was the October 2024 publication from a safety surveillance report that spanned multi-center studies that involved about more than 300 people who developed myocarditis after COVID vaccination. So they were followed up, much of their cardiac function were tested. And so this came about, this recent expansion came about because of this more recent data. So what does that mean for us? We all know that vaccines have side effects. And at least for myocarditis, following mRNA vaccinations, this is rather rare. And we're still looking at benefits versus risk. There should be more benefit than risk. So we just need to be careful about people who get the vaccine. So if they have had maybe history of cardiac dysfunction before, and especially the young, but it does not mean that only the young, the 16 to 25 years old, get this. It's rather rare, 8 million. Now, for this age group, it's about 38 cases of myocarditis. For this age group only, 16 to 25, about 38 cases of myocarditis following 1 million of vaccination. But for the other age groups, less than 65 years old, 8 yung cases. So it's still low, no? But still, we have to be careful. What do I say? If people, we have no problem in the Philippines. We don't have COVID vaccination anymore. None of these manufacturers applied for CPR, even for the updated versions. So it's maybe for the others who actually take the vaccines in other countries where these vaccines are available. That should be asking their doctors if they can go through the vaccine.
Well, Doc, it's been 3 years since we opened up from the lockdowns of the pandemic. But for those who took Pfizer and Moderna, myself included, are we out of the woods?
Oh, yes. There's no problem with you guys. We have these high-risk groups. So if you have had this, you did not develop, the vaccine-associated myocarditis would develop usually within a week after the vaccination and usually after the first and second doses. Less for the booster and the third doses, other doses. So you're out of the woods. Don't worry.
Okay.
So wala
Doc,
yan. And there are risk groups talaga.
Paliwanag lang po natin, ano po yung myocarditis at pericarditis?
Okay. Myocarditis refers to inflammation of the muscles of the heart. Yung pericarditis may balot. It's the lining around the heart. So when that is also inflamed, we call it pericarditis. So some of these vaccine-associated conditions na myocarditis, yun lang muscles. Yung iba, pati yung lining. So myopericarditis. So pwedeng myocarditis lang or pericarditis or both. So that's what happens.
Pero medyo bata po yung tinesting po nila, no? Males age 16 to 25. Isn't that a bit worrisome?
Well, these are the data that emerge. So when you have so many vaccinated and yung myocarditis, linat nila yan against all ages. And most of the cases of myocarditis were in this age group. Actually, a little younger pa nga yung iba, 12 to about 30. So pero yung pinaka-peak nandun sa 15 to 25, 16.
Okay, so what is the advice now, given all of this new knowledge? For those, if ever COVID, we do get reports here and there that COVID cases are rising again. What is the advice now from our doctors?
Well, COVID-19 is now considered endemic. So we have it every day. We can get it, but so far, as we know, Omicron related to the variants of Omicron, and they're relatively mild. Of course, for some who have comorbidities, we have to be more careful. We don't have the newer versions of the vaccine, yung variant form ng vaccines here in the Philippines, but we can take precautions as usual, no? So if we know na dumadami naman, or if we are at high risk, like kami, no? You take precautions, yung public health precautions, wearing masks, pag nasa labas kayo in crowded areas, public hygiene, sanitation, and all of this. So yun lang, we don't have the vaccines anymore, and we can go by the basic public health standards. Yun lang.
So wag na po magpa-bakuna?
Wala naman tayong vaccine dito sa Philippines, but if they have the means to go abroad, I would advise na they talk with their doctors kung yung nando sila sa risk group. Kasi even the elderly, high risk sila di ba? And they're advised to take the boosters abroad, not here, no? Wala sa atin.
Pag sinabi niyo po wala po tayong bakuna, tinigil na po yung supply, ibig sabihin. So doctors
wala
are
ng
not yet.
CPR, yung Certificate of Product Registration, walang nag-apply na suppliers. So they're not available anymore, even in the private sector.
So no COVID vaccines are available?
No, wala na sa atin.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. Thank you very much for that clarification and telling us that we who have taken those vaccines are out of the woods. That was Dr. Nina Gloriani, former chairperson of the Vaccine Expert Panel. Don't go away. More matters to discuss right after a quick break. Keep it here on One News. Secretary?
Yes.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us po again.
Hello.
Oo. Saan po kayo?
Nasa Legazpi.
Ano po meron dyan?
Merong meeting ang Regional Development Council.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos has retained Labor Secretary Benvenido Laguesma in his cabinet. Now, let's get his reaction to this development. Joining us on the show today, Secretary Laguesma. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen, at magandang umaga din po sa inyong mga taga-tangkilik at taga-subaybat at mga televiewers.
Okay, Secretary, una-una, no, kailan niyo po nalaman na kayo po ay retained dito sa cabinet ng Presidente?
Kahapon po, nung i-announce ni Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin na kasama po ako doon sa mga cabinet members na dinikline ng ating Pangulo ang courtesy resignation.
Oo. Tinawagan din po kayo?
Nanonood po ako kasi nabigyan po ng abiso na meron pong press con. Kung natatandaan mo, Gretchen, nung nakaraang linggo may press con na may mga in-announce. So, inassume ko na pag nag-press con uli si Executive Secretary, baka meron na namang announcement. So, nag-abang ako pagkatapos ko po manggaling sa isang pulong. At yun nga, medyo directly napakinggan ko po na binanggit niya yung aking pangalan na kasama sa mga mariretain na member ng cabinet.
Meron po bang bagong mandato ang Presidente dito sa kanyang pag-retain po sa inyo from the DOLE point of view at pati po sa directive po sa lahat?
Ang maliwanag po ang binanggit ng Pangulo, business not usual. O ibig sabihin po na kung meron po kaming ginagawa na nakakatulong, dapat palakasin pa namin, pag-ibayuhin pa, at ibaba namin talaga dun sa mga higit na nangangailangan. Yun po yung aking pangunawa dun sa sinabi ng Pangulo na dapat nakafocus, maging accessible at ang DOLE in particular dapat ay maging talagang results-oriented, gamitin ng maayos ang mga resources at makipag-ugnayan ng masugid sa atin pong mga constituencies, in particular ang mga manggagawa at ang mga namumuhunan.
Okay, Secretary, kung titignan po natin yung listahan, parang na-retain naman po halos lahat. Na ikinagulat din ng publiko dahil ito nga po sinasabi ng Presidente na gusto niyang kahit papaano lalo pang paigtingin yung serbisyo ng gobyerno. Pero it would seem that parang tatlo lang po yung major appointees na natanggal. Nagdulot ito ng mga katanungan sa kung ano nga ba yung naging goal ng Presidente dito sa paghingi niya ng resignation talaga. Kung masasabi niyo po.
Sa akin pong pananaw, karapatan naman po at plenary po ang authority ng ating Pangulo dahil siya naman po ang pumili, humirang, siya rin po ang pwedeng magtanggal. Ang akin pong pananaw ay gusto niya pong mag-deliver ng strong message na dapat nga, yung inuulitin ko lang, Gretchen, hindi siya yung business as usual lamang. No? Meron siyang mahigpit na strong signal na pinaabot niya sa pamamagitan po ng pagriripaso ng performances ng mga iba-ibang kalihim ng mga departamento na kinakailangan talaga yung layunin niya ng mga serbisyo ng ating iba-ibang departamento nagkakatulong-tulong at nagbibigay ng malaking pakinabang sa ating mga mamamayan.
Okay, Secretary, sa assessment niyo po, kamusta naman po ang accomplishments ninyo at ng DOLE sa nakaraan 3 taon?
So far, medyo maayos naman. In fact, kung iyong mamarapatin, hindi naman sa nagbubuhat ng bangko. Yung mga mga tumitingin sa atin pong performance, for example, ang COA, 3 sunod na taon na po na kami po ay unmodified opinion. Ang may kinalaman po yan sa aming pagmamanage ng pondo at tinitignan nila paano nakararating at sinong mga naabutan ng mga serbisyo ng Department of Labor and Employment. Tinignan din po ang aming mga ginagawang proseso sa bahagi naman po ng ARTA at sa kabutihang pala din na Gretchen, medyo maayos po ang aming mga nakuhang rating. No? Hindi po siya average, medyo mas mataas po sa average. At sa bahagi din po ng DBM na siya naman pong tumitingin din sa aming mga performances, lahat po ng attached agencies ng department at saka yung mga regional offices po ng Department of Labor and Employment, karamihan po ang nakuha po ay very satisfactory. Meron pong 2 ahensya na outstanding ang performance. So ito po ay nagbibigay sa amin din ng inspirasyon na pag-ibayuhin pa yung aming delivery ng services. Hindi dahil nakakuha ka ng magandang rating, ibig sabihin ay complacent ka na. It continues to be an inspiration. Nagbibigay po sa amin dito ng reminder na you are as good as you perform. No? Yun po yung message yan. Dapat lagi po ang ating pamantayan o standard over and above po dun sa nagawa mo nung nakalipas na taon at tiyakin nga na ang mga resources na ilalaan at naiupol at nakararating sa mga dapat na tinutulungan ng ating pong departamento at na kasama na rin po ang buong pamahalaan.
Noong 2024 po, nabanggit ng Pangulo ang ambisyon na madala yung unemployment rate to 2%. Nasa na po tayo noong January, nasa 4.3% pa lang po tayo. For now, what are the unemployment rates?
Ang pinakahuli po 3.8, no? Pero doon po sa Philippine Development Plan, actually within the target po 4% to 4.5 po yung target doon. Alam po natin na hindi siya ganun kasimpleng targeting dahil marami pong mga challenges o constraints na dapat ay binibigyan o tinutugunan ng mga solusyon. Bahagi na po dyan yung mga adverse effects ng climate change, rapid technological advancement, at may kinalaman din po doon sa mga geopolitical tensions na nangyayari. Lahat po ito nakakaapekto doon sa ating pong labor market. Kaya tuloy-tuloy din po ang ating pagpapataas ng antas ng intervention. Sa katunayan, nung nakaraang Mayo 5, May 5, nilunsad po yung Trabaho para sa Bayan Plan na tatagos po ito ng 2025 hanggang 2034. Ito po yung tinatawag na National Master Employment Plan at bahagi po dito sa nasabing plano yung pagkakaroon po ng isang tinatawag na Interagency Council. Pinangungunahan po ito ng NEDA o ngayon ay DepEd, Department of Economy, Planning and Development. So sila po yung nangunguna. Bahagi po naman dito ang DOLE, DTI, ang DILG, at DBM at DOF. Kasama po dito ang mahalaga ay yung partisipasyon po ng kinatawan ng pribadong sektor. May galing po sa labor organization, sa employers organization, at sa atin pong marginalized or informal sector. So ito po yung plano na magiging pagbabatayan ng mga hakbangin ng mga programa at proyekto ng pamahalaan upang mapuntahan po natin yung sinasabi na magkaroon ng inclusive growth, mabawasan po ang poverty incidence ng single digit at sa bahagi po ng DOLE, ang pinakamahalaga, makalikha po ng quality jobs, no? Decent and productive and sustainable jobs po para sa ating mga manggagawa.
Alam po natin na tayo ay nagkakaroon ng problema sa larangan ng edukasyon at yung kahandaan ng ating mga graduates na magpunta o makahanap ng trabaho pagkatapos nilang dumaan sa senior high school. Kamusta naman po tayo dyan? And nagmamatch ba doon sa hinahanap ng mga kumpanya? Ano po yung mga ginagawa po natin para masolve yung gap na yun sa ngayon?
Gretchen, nung nakaraang taon, nagkaroon po ng direktibang Pangulo doon po sa tinatawag na pagpapaloob o embedment nung pong techbook doon po sa curricula ng mga senior high school students. No? So, ibig sabihin na nagtasanib puwersa na po ang DepEd, ang TESDA, bahagi din po ang DOLE upang ma-address yung binabanggit mo. No? Yan ay actually ang sinasabi dyan laging job skills mismatch o kaya naman ay education job mismatch, no? Kasi ang natapos mo ay hindi nagdudulot o nagre-resulta sa pagkakaroon mo po ng trabaho. So tuloy-tuloy po sa bahagi ng Department of Labor and Employment, specifically Gretchen, meron po kaming mga programa. Ang layunin po nito ay may kinalaman sa pagtutukoy ng mga intervention para po sa tinatawag na youth employability. Meron po kaming school to work transition programs, kasama po dyan yung SPES, GIP, Job Start, at bahagi din po yung aming Career Support Development Program kung saan po nagkakalob tayo ng counseling din. Bahagi po yung counseling, maihanda po natin yung ating mga mag-aaral na magiging bagong miyembro po ng ating labor force. So, tuloy-tuloy po. At kung matatandaan mo rin, Gretchen, ito po meron tayong EDCOM 2 ngayon na talagang tinatalakay, hinihimay po nila yung may kinalaman sa ating pagpapalakas ng pundasyon ng edukasyon dahil ito po ang mahalagang kwalifikasyon o instrumento para makakita ka ng maayos na trabaho. At very recently rin Gretchen, yung pong ating EBET law, enterprise-based education training, ito rin po ay medyo lead agency rin dito ang atin pong TESDA kung saan po ang tinutukoy nito ay retooling, upskilling at pagpapalakas ng kasanayan ng ating mga manggagawa batay po dun sa mga pangangailangan o binabanggit ng mga emerging jobs ng ating pong mga investors at existing companies in the Philippines po.
Nasaan po ang DOLE pagdating naman po dito sa legislated wage hike proposal na 200 pesos? Kayo po ba ay pabor doon? At sa ating huling report, nalaman po natin na meron din 8 wage adjustment petitions in front of the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board requesting for 555 pesos increase. Ano po ang posisyon ng DOLE?
Ang DOLE po ay ang amin pong responsibilidad, may kinalaman po sa mga panukalang batas. Magkaroon po kami ng pagkakaloob ng tinatawag na technical inputs. No? Yung tinatanong mo kung pabor o kami ay hadlang, hindi po kami nagsasabi na kami ay humahadlang o pumapabor. Ang pinapakita po namin, ano yung mga senaryo na pwedeng mangyari dahil sa pangkasalukuyan sa ating sistema, Gretchen, at batid mo ito, ang mandato po ng DOLE sa pamamagitan ng Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Boards ay may kinalaman sa adjustment ng umiiral na minimum wage. Over and above the minimum wage po, yun po yun naman ay ginagampanan sa pamamagitan ng collective bargaining negotiations ng mga union sa mga organized companies. At meron din naman pong tinatawag na bilateral na usapan ang mga manggagawa at kanilang employer may kinalaman sa adjustment, hindi lamang ng sweldo, pati yung iba pang mga benepisyo na nakabatay naman po sa kasanayan ng ating mga manggagawa. So kami po ay tuloy-tuloy na gagampanan namin yung pag-a-adjust ng ating pong floor wage, entry level, yung minimum wage, Dahil yan nga po ay direktiba ng ating Pangulo na magkaroon ng timely review 60 days prior to the anniversary of the latest wage increase. Kaya nga po, sa pangkasalukuyan, yung pong proseso ay umiikot na at gumagalaw na po sa bahagi ng National Capital Region. Yung nabanggit mo na mga petisyon o kaya mungkahi, kung anong halaga, yan po ay isasaalang-alang doon sa pagdidinig na gagawin po ng ating pong National Capital Region Tripartite Wages and Productivity Boards. Nakatapos na sila ng public consultation sa Gretchen at ang susunod niyan ay public hearing sa buwan na ito at inaasahan po natin na sa darating na Hulyo, meron na pong lalabas na desisyon ng Wage Board, may kinalaman kung anong man pong halaga ang kanilang mapagpapasyahan na karagdagan sa ating umiiral na minimum wage, particular dito sa National Capital Region.
Medyo malaki pong hinihingi nila. Siguro ito po ay tugon doon nga po sa living wage sa NCR na binanggit ng Ibon Foundation na nasa 1,200. Pero itong legislated wage hike, tingin niyo po ba may pag-asa ito? Kasi iba naman po yun, no? I mean, would you rather go through these tripartite wage boards? At ano po ang talagang posible? Oo.
Yeah, Gretchen, alam mo, yung ang gusto ko sing bigyan ng DNA, yung pagpapanukala ng batas, yan po'y mandato ng ating Kongreso, both houses, no? Senado at saka House of Representatives. Akin lamang sa iyong kapahintulutan, nais ko lamang ulitin na kami nagkakalo po, pinapatawag po kami sa hearing bilang resource persons. Sinasabi po namin yung pwedeng maging senaryo, may kinalaman sa employment creation or employment level, sa ating pong inflation rate, pa ating pong GDP o gross domestic product. Mga factors po na dapat isaalang-alang kasi mahalaga po na mapanatili natin yung pagdami at paglikha ng mas maraming trabaho. Kasi pagka nakita po natin na ang demand ay hihigit doon po sa supply natin ng manpower, palagay ko hindi na po natin pag-uusapan ng minimum dahil ang mga manggagawa sa tuloy-tuloy na intervention po ng DOLE sa pamamagitan po ng TESDA at iba pang mga ahensya na nagkakaloob po ng karagdagang kasanayan at kaalaman sa ating mga manggagawa, yung pong minimum siguro ay hindi na yun ang pag-uusapan. Ang pag-uusapan, ano ba ang angkop na sweldo? Lalo na po yung mga manggagawa natin na skilled, dapat po pagkalooban sila ng mas mataas na sweldo batay po sa kanilang angking kwalifikasyon at angking kasanayan.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa update at sana may pagpatuloy, pag-ibayuhin pa, no, sa mga susunod na 3 taon. Thank you so much for your time, Labor Secretary Bienvenido Ulaguesma.
Maraming salamat din, Gretchen. Magandang umaga.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Hall. We are One News, all sides, all the time.